There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state-of-the-art. There are just certain design choices that we don't fully understand.
When it comes to a video game adaptation, there has really been a lot of discussion about what makes a good one. And we've gotten to a point now in the film and television industries where creators and executives alike have become far more accepting and respectful towards the video game industry and the art that it produces. Best examples that come to mind include The Last of Us, the 2 Sonic movies, and most recently the Fallout series on Amazon. I have at the very least enjoyed all of these, and I think a good factor for why that is the respect they hold for what came before. Sure, there are aspects, especially in Sonic and The Last of Us, where creative liberties have been made, or original ideas have been explored, but at the core, it doesn't feel completely out of nowhere. I mean, Fallout isn't technically adapting any one game, it's an entirely original story set in that world. What makes it so good? Well, I would say Maximus himself, Aaron Moten, puts it best.
The tone.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, and it was something that fans of the game would recognize immediately, but for me, a newcomer to the franchise, I was just surprised by it. I thought, like, what holds all this together at the same time, you know? The humor, the violence that's almost a spectacle.
Maybe the most popular adaptation from last year, other than the Super Mario Bros. Movie, was Five Nights at Freddy's. And I remember when I first watched it, I was highly disappointed. As a young fan of the first few games, I felt the movie failed to properly depict the story and, more importantly, tone the original game had millions of fans fallen in love with. And that's what I want to break down today. Because while audiences did appear to love it on first release, reception has become far more divisive, and there's a good reason for why. I think looking back at the film, comparing it to other sequels of recent time, we can better understand where FNAF fails and how it can improve in the upcoming sequel.
Bring it on, bitch!
The movie opens with a security guard frantically opening up a vent. Fans of the games will, like I was, immediately be interested and pleased by this. Basically, the filmmakers saying, yes, this is Five Nights at Freddy's, we're not messing with it, don't worry. This is helped even more by Fox's... The security guard is then caught and thrown inside of this thing. We never really understand what this is or what happens to the security guard's body after his death, but this introduction definitely had me excited on first watch. And if anything, if you take away the rest of the film, we have a very high quality FNAF short film here. Then there's the classic intro, ripping the Atari style graphics that I believe FNAF 2 used in a stylistic way that plants the seed for William Afton with this, I mean, incredible soundtrack. Just listen to this. The first shot after this is 6 AM, much like the ending of Each Night in the Games.
That's an Easter egg.
We meet Mike, a down on his luck guy struggling to take care of his little sister Abby, who we will find is the dumbest, most nonchalant child in the world. Mike, when we meet him, is a shopping mall security guard, but is fired after thinking a child's father was actually kidnapping them and, you know, does this.
It was a G.I. Jane jump.
On a search for a new job, we meet the one and only William Steve Raglan, okay. Sure. I'm not calling him that. Kind of stupid. It's not like they were gonna trick fans by giving a guy like Matthew Lillard a one-off side character, and we would think nothing of it. Apparently this name, Steve Raglan, is an anagram for everlasting, which some fans speculate is because, well, you know. Matthew Lillard is fantastic in this role, definitely a highlight in everything he does. I know most people will know him for Scooby-Doo or Scream, but my favourite performance of his has to be from 13 Ghosts.
What did I just say? Did I just say there's a petting zoo downstairs? No! There are ghosts downstairs, Arthur!
So anyway, William Afton offers a night job at, you can guess where, but Mike declines as he has to have time to take care of Abby. This isn't easy, however. Abby doesn't want to eat and has this weird, strange, imaginary friend. The filmmakers attempted with Mike and Abby's relationship at first to have audiences relate to this fantastical story through emotionally connected characters and relationships. For me, it's very hit or miss, especially later on with some of the decisions both Mike and Abby make. That night, Mike practices Mike's dream theory, we watch as he goes back to a childhood memory of his brother being taken. This is the scene that highlights the film's biggest diversion from the lore of the games. Michael was not only Michael Afton, William Afton's son in the original lore, but the reason his brother Garrett died was because Michael and his friends were joking around in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, shoving Garrett inside the head of an animatronic. The head of the animatronic malfunctioned, however, causing the jaw to shut, crushing Garrett and killing him.
Was that the bite?
This is a far more traumatic backstory and one which Michael is directly responsible for. It would make much more sense for Mike to be so fixated on the past and his brother's death if this was his backstory, rather than trying to figure out a small detail in a dream of a memory more than a decade old. This would also explain why the spirits of the kids we see later are able to connect with Mike through the dream in this whole setting that's tied to the animatronics and to the ghosts instead of just William Afton. My guess for why this change was made though was for the PG-13 rating that the filmmakers were going for, and potentially for the character of Mike to discover the pizzeria with the audience. Though for me, I was just more confused and far less interested in this original plotline for the film, that every time the focus changed to this mystery or the dream sequences, I was just left bored. Day 2 begins with Mike going to Abby's school, where we meet his Aunt Jane, played by Mary Stuart Masterson, alongside fan favourite Doug, played by Michael P. Sullivan, which is kind of funny. You know, Mike, Sully. Since Aunt Jane wants to take custody, Mike has to take the security job he was offered in order to support Abby. I had a big problem with this on my first watch, and it still bugs me a little now as well. I made this point in the original review of the film. First of all, the film takes far too long to get to where it needs to be. I mean, Mike needs a job, but he doesn't just need a job. He needs a job because he was fired. But he doesn't just need a job because he was fired. He needs a job because he was fired and he's about to get evicted. But he doesn't just need a job because he was fired and he's about to get evicted. He needs a job because he's fired and he was about to get evicted and he has a sister to take care of. But he doesn't just need a job because he was fired and he's about to get evicted and he has a sister to take care of. He needs a job because he was fired and he was about to get evicted and he has a sister to take care of, and he has an aunt that wants to get custody rights for his sister. So he needs to get a job for that. And and he can just need a job. All of it just takes too long to get to where we want to be. Mike takes the job and we have one of the few scenes that properly adapts an aspect of the game, the phone guy. On his way to the pizzeria and entering the office, we hear a message left by William Afton, describing the history of Freddy's and telling Mike to just look at the monitors and get through the night. This scene pays tribute to the game in an organic way that isn't too on the nose. Lillard's performance is phenomenal, setting a very creepy tone that I wish was built on more with his character.
So, I will catch you on the flip side.
Hopefully.
It's a really good moment, but it's just ruined by everything that comes afterwards. The atmosphere of being inside Freddy's didn't give me what I wanted. That sense when playing the games that there is something watching, a supernatural force that is ever present, that you aren't safe at any given moment, keeping you alert throughout the whole night, right until that clock hits 6 AM. And how did Mike's first night go? Yeah, I get it, nothing ever happened on the first night, but this was their first impression for showing us the danger that Mike is in right now, and it's completely missing for this scene. And really, the rest of the film. We are introduced to the ghosts of the children in the animatronics inside Mike's dream, however. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy, whose presence in this film isn't really a mystery like it was in the first game. He's just more kind of there, and it's a bit weird what his role is, but Mike tries to chase the kids. Tripping over, he wakes himself up, and Jesus Christ, who falls like that? Like, that's a common thing, to trip in a dream and wake yourself up, but my man's body was launched. The next day we're at a diner where the Aunt Jane plotline continues. It'd be very easy to just drop out at this moment, except the filmmakers know this and know that the audience would be interested, so this is where they drop in more Doug, obviously, and
to my credit, I think I'm like the only 37-year-old out there who has an unironic appreciation of Skibbity Toilet.
So Aunt Jane and her little gang, including Doug, Abby's babysitter, Max, and her brother, plan on getting Mike fired as a way to win custody for Abby. This way Aunt Jane can just get more checks from the state, I guess. I don't know, it's kind of weird. They want to do this by trashing up Freddy Fazbear's, but wouldn't that only get him fired if he was there whilst it was happening? They say because Mike was on his sleeping medication, he forgot to lock a door, but they don't break any locks. They just got in through the sliding garage looking door, which surely wasn't Mike's responsibility to open and close every night. At the same time, this building's been closed for what, 20 years? It wouldn't have the tightest security anyway, so it would be more the fault of the owner and not the guy that checks in at nights. Anyway, that night Mike goes back and no, dude, wake up! Seriously? Why is this guy snoozing so much, man? You would honestly think that knowing he could lose his sister without his job would make Mike at least stay conscious while there, but this dream ends rather differently. Mike gets a real cut on his arm from Foxy, which just makes me question why didn't Foxy kill Mike if he was able to physically do that to him, or if it was even done physically, if it was in the dream. Either way, it's kind of stupid. But on that topic, why are the animatronics keeping Mike alive this long anyway, considering he isn't exactly defending himself? But at the moment he wakes up, a cop shows up to the door and we meet Vanessa. Yet again, we have another massive change made into the story, as Vanessa is confirmed in the film to be William Afton's daughter. It's a strange decision, but it's not hugely impactful. More telling of the attitude that the writers had around how accurate they wanted their project to be, the original source material. Also, others have already said it, but Vanessa's inclusion doesn't make any sense. Why is she showing up at the pizzeria in the first place? Is she working for her father, or is she just complicit in this kidnapping of kids? And then why does Mike just forgive this at the end?
I don't think that either of us would be here today if it weren't for you.
Yeah, and a lot more people would be alive if Vanessa arrested William Afton years ago. It's just very contrived. Also, quick side note, but this moment really confused me.
Wanna dance?
What? That is so weird to say. You don't even know this guy, and it's even weirder when you realise Vanessa knows the animatronics are alive and watching this. What? Like, why would she say this? Later we get what some argue is the best scene of the film, where the gang of misfits go inside Freddy's and are one by one killed by the animatronics. And no, it just doesn't work for me. For one thing, why is the cupcake the one causing most of the havoc?
There's only one beer left.
I have a lot of issues with this sequence. Every single kill is off screen, which is fine, but it's just that this is the most horror-esque scene of the whole film, and yet it just feels very generic for the genre, and doesn't demonstrate, to me at least, what makes this IP special and unique. People criticise the games for their over-reliance on jump scares, but that isn't the reason FNAF became so popular. In my opinion, the anticipation beforehand was what was more intense, having to juggle multiple tasks and camera angles, keeping track of all these different animatronics that are on their way to get you, whilst there is a battery that determines whether you can lock yourself away from the danger, when that danger is only right outside the door. The reason I bring all this up is because the film doesn't capture any of that at all. For comparison, let's look at The Last of Us TV series and the sequence inside the museum where Joel, Ellie and Tess have to hide and subsequently fight off a pair of clickers. This, without a doubt, is the best action sequence in the whole series and a perfect adaptation of what the moment in the games feels like as a player, using film techniques to translate that through to a TV audience. First of all, the reveal of the clickers themselves is done brilliantly. The slow movement and silence, that suspense up until Ellie slips up and makes a noise alerting them. Just fantastic. Then the action here feels a lot like the games, where the characters behave a lot like how a player would in this same moment. Tess immediately panics, firing a shot towards one clicker but misses. Instead of firing again, however, she decides to run because the value and scarcity of bullets, not just in the world but also through gameplay, is shown. Joel similarly running until creating a distraction, which reverts the clickers back to searching for the three. This shot here is superb. Much like in the games, we almost see Joel's senses mechanic in the lower difficulties of the game, where the player can see enemies through walls. As Joel reloads, we, the audience, see the clicker, feeling somewhat safe until the camera pans away, almost like the senses have been turned off. Now is the insecurity you feel as both audience and player. This only grows as the clickers, well, clicks grow louder. It's genuinely a terrifying moment that plays with the mechanics of the game and works to develop them in a TV setting that is organic, unlike, say, the first-person sequence of the 2005 Doom movie. However, there isn't anything like that in Five Nights at Freddy's, and not to say it exactly needs a scene of Mike staring at cameras for 3 minutes, but be creative, develop that feeling you get in the games. Could you imagine a scene where Mike has to lock in to the monitor and make sure that the animatronics do not get close to either him or Abby? I feel like with the right direction and performances, you could create a really solid sequence that recreates that feeling of playing your average FNAF level, that is not just true to the games but feels organic to the film format. Anyway, the next night Max isn't able to take care of Abby because So Mike's brilliant idea is to take Abby with him to work, so obviously knowing that the building was broken into mere hours ago, and with your sister here, Mike would never— oh, come on! So it only took an hour to get here, but we finally properly see the animatronics in all their glory. And now it's time to praise Jim Henson's Creature Shop, because wow, the animatronics are fantastic. I do remember when the first trailer came out, everyone was arguing over the fact that the eyes glowed red, but seriously, if that is the worst thing fans can say about the designs, then it says a lot about how good they got it. I think the best decision filmmakers ever did was committing to practical suits or puppets or even animatronics for the animatronics, and I'm glad they're continuing this partnership with the sequel. However, my issue isn't with the design, because this scene and a later one break any sort of feeling of terror towards Freddy and co, making me want to compare it more to, say, the Halo series or The Witcher, where the designs for everything are fantastic for the most part, but what we're watching doesn't feel like Five Nights at Freddy's. It's here that I want to mention that I think you could make a family-friendly movie out of FNAF. I mean, the primary audience, since its spark of popularity, was prominently a younger audience, including myself back when the original trilogy of games was coming out. And I understand the filmmakers would want to capture a similar audience with this, and that would be why they want to go for a lighter style. But then why go for a PG-13 and UK-15 rating? That, as a result, highly misleads the audience before the film's release. I know I personally was at least expecting some level of gore, even if the film wasn't going to be necessarily scary. But then again, I also appreciate that the film served as an introduction to the horror genre for many people. I know renowned director Mike Flanagan praised the film for being a gateway to horror for his 13-year-old son. I think that's fantastic, and it shows that the IP has created a wider awareness and admiration for the genre, so I will credit it for that. However, I still hold the opinion that we could have gotten a much better FNAF film than one we had, even if it had a lower rating and was aimed towards a younger audience. Skipping ahead, however, the next night, Mike has Aunt Jane take care of Abby instead of taking her back to Freddy's because Vanessa warned of how dangerous it could be. Mike once again starts snoozing. There's really no point arguing against it now, he's just chosen this life. But there we have a scene which I think is better than most people argue. The ghosts of the kids trick Mike into giving up Abby to stay in the perfect memory of his family, and honestly, I do like this scene. Josh Hutcherson really made it work for me, and I could feel that selfish desperation, even if it was just for a second, causing the catastrophe that spiraled into the final act. I think it was superb and really held up by Hutcherson's performance. After this, Mike is able to escape out of the dream and also the contraption that would have killed him, but there's a strange transition between him being chased by Foxy to suddenly being unconscious and Vanessa all of a sudden materializing and tending to his wounds. Potentially a scene in between this was cut, but I can't say for certain. Abby's taken by Golden Freddy, and I said previously his addition is pretty strange. In the game, Golden Freddy is a rare yet mysterious encounter that actually crashes the game, but in the film it's just plain weird what his role is. Like, is he the main ghost child, or is he just another animatronic that looks different? Either way, it takes away from normal Freddy's significance to the ensemble and is just overall more confusing rather than an intriguing secret like in the game. Back with Vanessa and Mike though, we finally get the reveal that William Afton is the man behind the slaughter, and it comes with a very solid music drop.
His name is William Afton.
Now their goal is to save Abby and stop Afton, I guess. Bit late, Vanessa, but you finally realise you can do that as an actual cop. They get over there and some shenanigans take place. It gets quite forgettable at this point, but then we get William Afton as an active role in the story. Honestly, I said it before and I'll say it again, the biggest fault, more than anything, is not having Matthew Lillard in it more, because he is a phenomenal actor and the character of William Afton has so much potential to be explored before he's, well, I did enjoy what little we had of his performance though. The direction nicely shows the control he has over the animatronics. Abby puts up a picture of Afton killing the kids, showing Freddy and co that it was Afton that was the one that killed them. This I have a few issues with. Also, the film comes up with the idea that pictures have power and they influence the animatronics in some way. That on its own is one thing, but why don't the children just remember this? You would think they wouldn't be happy about their current situation anyway, and they know that Afton exists and is the reason they're like this, but they only just put it together that he killed them? It just doesn't make much sense. Anyway, the cupcake is the one that takes a chomp out of Afton's suit, causing the spring lock mechanism to malfunction, killing him. He says the line, "I always come back." And this just made me roll my eyes. It's the same problem with a lot of other Easter eggs and cameos in the film, or any other film that relies on them. It's just not organic in the moment for him to say this. It's just something to go, oh, he said the thing, like from the thing, wow. It's just not good writing. Compare this to the use of war never changes in Fallout. Spoilers for the series if you haven't yet to watch it, but go watch it though, it's great. Where that is a line said at the beginning of each game, we build up to it throughout the series, and the weight of it is increased tenfold through the Ghoul's wife, using it as a reason for dropping the nukes on America. It's extremely powerful to any audience, fan or not, and more importantly, it doesn't distract from the actual scene. And with that, Mike and Abby ride off into the sunset, with Vanessa now in a coma and Afton slowly turning into a villain for the sequel.
Can we visit them sometime?
And that is Five Nights at Freddy's. So, like I said at the beginning, this was a divisive film amongst fans. I think the big split was between those that preferred the originals to diehard fans that love the newer atmosphere and style of games like Security Breach. Despite all of this, however, the film made a hell of a lot of money in the box office and also on streaming, so we're definitely going to be seeing like 12 new FNAF movies over the coming years. If you like this video though, please like, subscribe, all that lovely stuff, and leave a comment. What were your thoughts on the film? Is there anything I didn't mention that you liked or disliked? Let me know. Thanks guys, bye bye.